Folks, there's a press conference. Our microphones are always there at the White House. There's an impromptu press conference at the White House right now. President Obama, I guess, is soon to be coming out.
Everybody, this is a very difficult time for our president. Look, give him a good opening on Romney's statement first, then one of us should follow up with a question about the video.
What if he gets off message?
We aren't going to let that happen. I've already spoken to Carney. And Bob, don't ask him any questions about Israel. It drives him nuts, and he could really step in it so bad we can't save him.
Oh, yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, everybody, get ready.
My fellow Americans, President Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood has promised to help us in the pursuit of our enemies, and I have instructed the FBI and our State Department to work with Egyptian and Libyan authorities in every way possible to bring these people to justice before the election. I instructed the FBI to call this a crime scene, which means I cannot answer any questions about the investigation into this random act of criminal activity. Also, I have instructed the Secretary of Education to assure the Egyptian protesters that my administration will extend affordable student loans and, if necessary, more apologies. Make no mistake. This video is what started all of this. None of these protests and none of these actions are directed at the United States or my policies in the region. And to our enemies and the protesters, I want you to know that you didn't do this on your own. U.S. foreign aid built the roads and bridges you traveled on to get to the embassy. And we will continue to invest in your country until we win ultimate victory. Now, I'll take some of your questions. Yes, Judy.
Mr. President, Governor Romney has suggested that your response to these protests and attacks have made America appear weak. We in the media are convinced he is trying to shore up his extremist Tea Party base. Are you surprised by his lack of respect and sensitivity for you, the office of president, and Peggy Noonan?
No, I'm surprised he is apparently unaware of the video that the 12 people in the Middle East with internet access were able to view last June. Let me be clear, and let me say this again. This was not a response to the U.S. policy, my administration, or the American people. It was just a random response to a YouTube video. And know this, it just happened to take place on 9/11. We all know that is purely coincidental. Yes, David?
Mr. President, what steps have you taken to stop this Coptic Christian filmmaker from striking again?
He's been taken in for questioning by the L.A. County Sheriff's Office, and we found that his influence and deception goes far deeper than we thought. And let me tell you, this man is apparently a coward. He is now in hiding, refusing to return to his home so that you can further harass him, as he should certainly be.
Can you elaborate, sir? Can you tell us more?
Well, it's classified, so I can't...
Does he have links to the recession, sir?
As a matter of fact, this man has been found to have contributed significantly to the recession, and his actions are making our recovery all that much more difficult. In fact, let me just say this about that. I have spoken to the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Mr. Bernanke, and he showed me some convincing data that this filmmaker and his video, and we must remember the role of that video in all of this, that our rising gas prices, stubbornly high unemployment, and even the strike by my friends, the teachers in Chicago, are linked to this man and his video.
Yes, this is exactly what we need. Right on. I'm so excited.
Sir, is this so-called producer responsible for Joe Biden's alleged past plagiarism and present incoherent outburst?
We're definitely looking into that.
And will you send in the SEALs to get him before the next jobs report?
I'm keeping all of my options open. Jake.
Mr. President, some conservative talk shows have said that these attacks were coordinated on the anniversary of 9/11. That can't possibly be true, can it?
Of course not. And I'm so glad you asked that, even though I just answered it. These people don't even use the same calendar we use, as you all know. 9/11 really doesn't mean to them what it means to us. These were clearly coincidental random attacks, brought on first by the YouTube video last June, and then Mr. Romney's ill-timed comments last Monday. The American people need to know that the maker of that video, Nakula Baseli Nakula, is responsible for the uprisings at the U.S. embassies in over 21 countries, the proliferation of black Al-Qaeda flags, or out-of-control deficits, and has kept me from attending more than half of my intelligence briefings. CNN reported yesterday that the protesters in Cairo were paid in much the same way that our own Occupy Wall Street protesters were paid. But there is a huge difference, and I want the American people to know that my intelligence people tell me it was a filmmaker, Nakula, who paid the protesters in Cairo. This is a perfect example of the usefulness of the 16,000 new IRS agents I'm hiring to investigate those who do not willingly participate in my health care reform, Obamacare. And they will get to the bottom of this. Yes, Jim.
So since this is all true, could we also say that The Dark Knight Rises was responsible for the tragedy in that Aurora, Colorado movie theater?
Well, actually, no, because anti-Islamic conservative Republicans had nothing to do with that movie. In that one rare, isolated case, the man who pulled the trigger was clearly at fault. In fact, let me tell you this. When I went upstairs one night last week, Malia told me that Michelle had broken a window in the residence, right in the area where Nancy Reagan used to host tea for the old Washington biddies way back in the day. And I had to correct Malia and tell her she was wrong. The window broke because it was there. If Mommy had thrown that bust of Churchill up against the wall, the window would not have broken, and the gardener would not have had to go to the hospital, but the window was where she threw it. So the window was clearly to blame in that situation. Yes, John.
Mr. President, a caller to the Rush Limbaugh show last week suggested that you, sir, might actually be responsible for these uprisings because they said you've been spiking the ball since you killed bin Laden, specifically making your convention all about bin Laden being dead. Have you considered sending the police to round up Rush Limbaugh for questioning?
Let me say this about that. I don't know what is in Rush Limbaugh's heart. Now, and Rush Limbaugh has the constitutional right of free speech, just like everyone else, except for the filmmaker, Nakula. But we may have to review his phone records to track down that caller and question her, just a bit. And we are very interested in how his call screener, Mr. Snerdley, I believe that's his name, even allowed that call to go through. What hour of the show was that?
Media Matters said it happened in the second hour. They have the whole thing, and it has already been sent to the networks and the papers.
Now, I'd like to have Secretary Clinton answer your questions. Yes, Judy.
Madam Secretary, would you like to apologize just one more time to Muslims around the world?
Yes. Let me take a moment to address the video circulating on the internet that has led to these protests in a number of countries. Let me state very clearly, and I hope it is obvious, President Obama had absolutely nothing to do with this video. And it's absolutely the source of all our problems in the region. When I saw Mr. Nakula, the filmmaker, being rounded up, I was finally proud of my country.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and thank you for your questions. Look, I know you guys are all taking a lot of flack for your reporting in all of this, and I want to tell the American people that the reason for that is Mitt Romney. If Governor Romney had not shot before he aimed and started criticizing me and all of this, you could have looked elsewhere. But Romney, he made these attacks and this story about him last week by criticizing my decisive leadership. And you had no choice but to ignore me and tell the American people how some of this is actually his fault. Keep up the good work. God bless the United States. And God help Mitt Romney.